Well, happy Saturday, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania here. Again, only 30 days left of winter, and or if you want to look at the other way around, 30 days until spring here. Anything but spring here. We're going to talk about this S word, snow, way too much here at the beginning of today's video here, but surprise event here. Again, we are WT360 here in the upper part of this map right here. We're right about there. Had about 6 to 8 inches just near our offices, and then didn't have to go too far south to actually get over a foot of snow, just again a few miles. So surprise band, again, this dark green band is just a precip equivalent, but that was a band of a heavy 12-inch to 13.8 inches of snow from like Reading, Pennsylvania, all the way toward New Brunswick, New Jersey, Edison, just south of New York City here. So other areas, just north or south of these bands, more in the traditional Clipper type event of 4, 5, 6 inches at most. But again, a surprisingly strong Alberta Clipper here. So the past 72 hours as this Clipper went, again, all the way from the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, across the Northern Plains, then dove down into Illinois, and then again across our area here. So again, it was a snowy few days here, 28% more than last year, 13% above average, 14th most in 39 years. So a widespread Clipper event, usually not quite this strong. If we look at snow cover here today, this is about 42% of the country has snow on the ground. Now again, similar to last year, but polar opposite. Look at there in Minneapolis. Last year was plastered in snow up in Minnesota, Dakotas, Wisconsin, and then this year not as much, and then nothing here in the east last year. We were very, very warm and snowless, and then obviously the heavy snow we just had here. So typical snow cover here this morning. Season today is kind of misleading here. Again, we obviously had no snow at the beginning of the season all the way through the end of December here, so we had a ton of ground to make up here, but we'll show you it's a tale of two halves. But season to date, meaning 30 September through today, down 16% versus last year, 31% below average, third least in 39 years here. But let's look at this a little differently here. So snowfall trends here. This is showing last winter and this winter. Last winter we had a very snowy start to fall on through December, and then nothing really during winter, and then a snowy spring into late February, March, even into April. This year, kind of polar opposite. Nothing the front half of the season, and then the huge spike there in mid-January. We had the snowiest middle January period in over 30 years. Then not much at the end of January, beginning of February. Now another little spike here of the third snowiest week here of this winter. Maybe a lull here for a couple of weeks, but I think the snow may come back here as we get into early mid-March. So yeah, let's break this down here. Two halves here. Again, the map left here is showing the front half of winter this year. Again, the browns are just much, much less snow than a year ago. Maps are showing trends versus a year ago. So snowy there in the Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado area, a little bit in the Northeast. And then map right is since 1 January here, the most in 3 years, and actually average snowfall since the first for the nation. So those purple areas are 3, 4, 5, 600% more snow. Again, the Pacific Northwest, parts of the Midwest, obviously, and up and down the East Coast. So a snowier back half of winter here for the U.S. We aggregate the two, the full season here. So this is 1 October through 17 February here. So the real snowy spots, again, right here, kind of in ground zero in the east, much, much snowier than last year. And Minneapolis, much less snowy. So Minneapolis, about 55 inches this time last year, only 14 inches this year. That's down 75%, least in 17 years. So they're the snow hole. Here in Bethlehem, this number is actually going to change here because we haven't added in the storm as of today. But prior, we had 22 inches versus only 3 last year. So that was a 633% increase, most in 3 years, slightly above average. In fact, after this storm, now we're actually way above average for this point in the season here. So the other thing that's way above average is rainfall. Since about mid-November when the El Nino finally really kicked in, the pattern here. Here in the U.S., about 13% more than last year, most in 5 years, second most in 39 years. But look at all that rain here in the east coast, northeast, number one wettest in over 40 years. So still very concerned about flooding in these dark green shaded areas on the map right here. If you're in those much above average areas, again, a good chance of some flooding here this spring. Looking at last week's summer here ending today, here in the U.S., it was 1.2 cooler than last year. Still made about 8th warmest, but cooler northeast. Again, big map here is trends versus last year. 1% wetter, wettest in 3 years, 12th wettest in 39 years. Snowier, 69% more snow, 19th most. Real cold spot that was there in Russia, polar vortex, not too hard to find. They're camped out in Russia. China, the warm spot, very warm. But again, we'll see here in a minute that polar vortex is going to be on the move, so it's going to leave northern Europe and western Russia and head east. So we'll see how that can influence us here in the weeks ahead. Look at this week here, President's Day week, 2.2 warmer. Again, really warm there in the central U.S. after all the snow, so a lot of that will melt. Warmest in 7 years, 7th warmest in 39. Snowfall way down. We'll see about that. Models are having a hard time, obviously, with just a couple days out, let alone a week out. So Might be a little bit underdone here, but supposedly third least snow in 39 years. And rainfall, again, I think it's a little underdone here. A big storm hitting the west coast, but nationally down 21%, driest in 15 years. Again, we'll see about that. I think the pattern is definitely stormy here as we go through the next few weeks. Next week, again, week ending 2 March. Hard to believe we're in early March already, but 3.1 warmer than last year, warmest in 24 years. Again, tail it, all that heat there in the middle of the country. But just because it's warm doesn't mean we're not going to have periods of cool weather enough just to get some snow there too. So snowfall, while it's down 28%, we'll see. There's another weekend storm here that could happen in the Northeast. We'll see. I think it's maybe a little underdone here, but a chance that there's another surprise snow event here, Northeast, Great Lakes. Rainfall, again, way up, 36% wetter than last year, wettest in 6 years, 6 wettest in 39 years. So again, stormy pattern for sure. And again, that's going to be concerning here for flooding as we go through this spring season. Polar vortex here, you can see that it's kind of erratic. It's not totally symmetrical here, and there's a little chunk there you see that spins through, takes the polar vortex from, again, western Russia to central Siberia, and then toward northeast Siberia, China, and even to parts of Alaska here. So this is the tail end of it, getting into early March. So early March, mid-March, we'll have to see if that chunk gets all the way into the U.S. We do think it will, and we do think we'll have some more snow here. We don't think we're out of the woods here for another couple big snowstorms in the Midwest and the Northeast again. So we will see. Look at the World 2-week outlook again. This is just aggregating extremely warm trends here part of this week. So 18 Feb, 2 March, again, warm there in the plains. Again, you can see that polar vortex has left northern Europe and western Russia, headed more towards central Siberia and toward China, which was really hot, now turning really cold. And that trajectory typically takes it toward Alaska, and then obviously then potentially down into the U.S. within about 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll see about the beginning of March. It does look like signs of colder trends right as we change the month here. We look at the rainfall, snowfall trends here through 2 March. Again, just because it's warm doesn't mean you won't have a lot of snow. So again, a lot of rain there in Brazil. Again, 5+ inches of rain. They need it for their crops down under. So again, a little late, but better never than late. So that, folks, hope you have a great week. We'll end here with a time lapse of our snowstorm here. This was looking from our building here to downtown Bethlehem, looking toward Lehigh University and downtown Bethlehem. Again, see the Star of Bethlehem there on the hill, and then see the snow just pummels. Just, again, about a mile south of this depiction here on the side of that mountain, 13 inches of snow in about 6 hours last night. So it was a pretty epic, heavy snowfall. Again, when you're only going to bed thinking 2 to 5 and you end up with 13, that's certainly a surprise for everyone. So that, folks, have a great week, and we will talk to you this time next week.